Welcome to the Deal by Me podcast. This is where we ask guests to tell us your story. Your story can be encouraging, inspiring, and very transforming. We want guests to share their experiences and events in their lives that can benefit someone else. You have a story, and so if you would like to contact us on our website, dealbyme.com, and let us know that you would like to share your story. We ask that you will give us a comment and share our podcast with other friends and family members. And if you're viewing this podcast on YouTube, we ask that you give us a comment and consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. We love to spread the word of encouraging, inspiring, and transforming. Today we have with us Emmanuel Tabb, who is an activist and scholar. He has also spoken at Moral Monday, led by the North Carolina NAACP and the civil rights leader, Reverend Dr. William Barber. He has also interned for the United States Senate candidate, Sherry Beasley, while she was a member of the North Carolina Supreme Court. He has traveled internationally, and he will talk a lot more about all of this as we continue in our conversation today. Emmanuel,
Hey,
welcome,
how are you?
welcome to the Deal by Me podcast. It's good to have you share with listeners of this podcast today. So, would you just tell us a little bit about you, uh, uh, where you are living now, and how uh, were born, where you were born, and just a little bit, and then we'll get into a good conversation.
Yeah, so I am very honored to be on your show. I've been following your show and you've had some amazing guests. So again, my name is Emmanuel Tabb, and I was born in Raleigh, North Carolina, but I was raised in Durham, where I currently reside. And as was stated previously, I am interested in social justice and also theology. And my story, my background is very interesting because I was born a preemie. I was born at 1 pound 9 ounces, and I won't go too into that now, but it is a very powerful and intriguing story that I have always shared, and I am glad that I am able to share this story today with your listeners.
Well, hey, man, I want you to know it's an awesome privilege to have you come on this podcast to share with us. In the interest of transparent, I do want our listeners to know that we are cousins. Your father and I are first cousins, uh, but you deserve a platform. And with all that you've done, and all that you have gone through, I just thought that to have you come on our podcast and talk about your experiences would just be awesome. And so let me just ask you a couple of things. I know that you are now in graduate school at Duke uh, University, the Divinity School, and you're working on your MA degree in Christian practice, and you will be graduating this year. Uh, what is it, and why did you decide to enter seminary? Was there any calling? How did you feel about this when you decided that you wanted to go to seminary?
Well, my calling to go into seminary, I feel like was very young. I've always been a public speaker and someone that has always had a passion for just showing the gospel and preaching the gospel. And having the gospel shown not just through my life, but also through the words that I felt that God led me to speak to
Hmm.
people when I
Okay.
was 2 years old. So I feel like there was always a calling on my life, but I don't want to say that I was running from my calling, but I kind of steered away from my calling. So for a long time, I wanted to go into law, and then about my junior year in undergrad at North Carolina Central University, I had an epiphany where I felt God spoke to me and said, "I want you to go to divinity school,
Hmm.
and not only do I want you to go to divinity school, I want you to go to Duke University." And I had a moment where I was like, divinity school, Duke University, like me, like going there. And it was just a whole 360 in terms of my thought process and my thinking. And I felt God was telling me that I've always been prepared for this moment. I just had to step in that moment and have faith and believe that I could do it.
Awesome, awesome. You are still very young, especially being in seminary uh, at Duke. Would you let listeners just know how old you are at this point?
I'm 27.
27 years of age, and in graduate school at Duke as a seminary student. What an awesome uh, moment this must be for you. You've just done so much. You have just been with a lot of interesting folk. You have appeared in local television networks, such as ABC, 11, WRAL, among many others. You've done a lot of travel. Uh, so, talk a little bit about places that you have gone and how you have enjoyed these particular places, and let us know which one of these places were your favorites and how did you get to go. Talk about that a little bit with us.
Yeah, so I've traveled all around the world. I've been to Nairobi, Kenya. I've been to London, England. And I've also been to Havana, Cuba. And those experiences were all just very different experiences for me. When I went to London, England, I was in elementary school. So that was a very different experience from coming from the United States and going there to Great Britain, seeing Big Ben and seeing all these different landmarks that I've only dreamed about, seeing Wimbledon and all those different places that you see on TV, but to actually experience it and be in the different chapels and cathedrals and just having those experiences was something that I'll never forget there. And also going to Nairobi, Kenya, where I was able to experience East Africa and the culture there in Kenya. And I was able to be with the Maasai people, and I was able to also to go into a Hindu temple. We experienced so many different things there and had a lot of different experiences in terms of lifestyle choices, in terms of experiences there.
Mhm.
Uh, in terms of living conditions, we were in 5-star hotels, and then we would also uh, be in the bush. So we experienced a lot of different living arrangements, I'll
Mhm.
say,
Mhm.
and that made me have an appreciation for just life in general, and
Mhm.
to be just blessed with whatever we're able to be given. I
Wow.
remember one man, his story. He said when he was an adult, he got shoes for the first time,
Oh, wow.
I just remember him breaking down, crying, telling us that story. And it's just moments where you just never forget. And then being in Cuba and just experiencing the culture and with the dancing that they're known for ballet dancing and just a lot of different other forms of Cuban dance as well. And just to experience that culture is something that I'll never forget. And how I was able to experience that culture was through my dad. He's the former theater director at Hillside High School in Durham, North Carolina.
Yeah, I believe your father is a well-known educator here in Durham,
Yes,
and,
sir.
and and your mom is one who has helped you overcome a lot of your health challenges. I know you got to be very very proud of them. But not only have you gone to those places, but you've also gone to Africa. Uh, did you? I think you went to Hawaii at some point too. Did you not?
I haven't been to Hawaii yet.
Okay,
That's something
okay.
I still have to put on the list. It's so many places when I was thinking about it that we haven't been. Of course, my dad has been to all of the continents but one.
Oh wow, wow.
Yeah, so he's been everywhere, and there's still a whole lot of places he's never traveled.
Oh wow, what great experiences to be 27 years of age. I hope you understand that you've already done and gone to places and have had experiences that people who live a lifetime have not had. So that is very, very remarkable. You know, being uh, born at 1 pound and 9 ounces uh, must have created some real uh, challenging uh, health situations for you. What are some of the things that you dealt with in terms of your uh, physical challenges that you have kind of overcome? Because when you think about somebody who was born 1 pound 9 ounces, it's like wow, you don't see them where you are, and so there had to be lots of things that you have overcome. Would you talk about that just a little bit? I know it's a little personal, but I think listeners would really appreciate knowing just a little bit about your health challenges.
Yeah, well, as we stated before in the beginning, I was born 1 pound 9 ounces. I was born at Rex Hospital in Raleigh, North Carolina, and then I was transported to Wake Med in Raleigh, North Carolina, and then I ended up in the end at UNC Hospital. So I had countless surgeries during that time. I had surgery on my intestines, and I also had surgery on my eyes as well. So through that, I was able to have different health challenges through that, and I'm blind in my right eye, and I also have mild cerebral palsy, which are two things that they have an impact on me in terms of my day to day life. In terms of like depth perception, it can be very difficult in that area. But I find it where a lot of people they don't really notice it. Like especially when I tell people, they're surprised. They're like, "You have mild cerebral palsy, or
Mhm.
you're blind in your right eye."
Mhm.
But there are things that I've learned to compensate.
Mhm.
But I've also, of course, had difficulties, there in those areas. But I have to also realize that, yeah, I was given a 25% chance of life, so
Mhm.
I wasn't even expected to live. Doctors were saying that I was going to be a vegetable, and that's what they were telling my parents and my family. So when I think about that, I'm like, I have nothing to worry about, and to not say that it's been
I,
easy.
I understand. I
Very
definitely
difficult,
understand. Uh,
very challenging.
you you are an amazing individual, and I do want you to know that, and it's just a thrill, and I'm so grateful for the privilege to just talk to you and to interview you for this podcast because you share things that listeners who are going through something need to hear. Let me ask you this. first share this with you. I'm a retired pastor, uh, 2 months short of 32 years at the same church. And when I started this podcast, one of the things that I wanted to do was to have uh, persons on who would share their experiences and the events in their lives that would give encouragement, that would be an inspiration, that would hopefully transform somebody who is going through something. Uh, Somebody who has gone through some difficult challenges in their lives. Uh, you, yours it has been really one of those situations where it's amazing to see your accomplishments. But others have had different challenges in different areas. It could be almost anything. I've interviewed folks who have gone through uh, been in orphanage back and forth in their lives. I'm just reading a book on the road less traveled of a guy I interviewed, and then there are others who on drugs or who done this, and but and they feel as if you know uh, it was hard to do it, but they finally did it. Okay, and they gave this encouragement. What would you say to somebody who was going through some health challenges, some other challenges that they're dealing with? What would you say to those individuals? Well, for a young person, and then we talk about somebody who's like I am, an elderly person. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I definitely think that having challenges is definitely a difficult experience for everybody, and people interpret things differently in terms of when they're experiencing it, and no two people are gonna they're not gonna experience it the same way or even look at the same situation in the same way. But I think one thing that has helped me is understanding that I have a purpose. And that goes back to what I said in the beginning about with my choice of going into divinity school. And I didn't know at the time that that is what I was wanting to do, or that God was telling me to do. But I had to understand that I've always had this purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and my story was connected to that purpose.
Mm.
I didn't understand why I was going through that my story was to serve a better purpose, and that was to help encourage someone, that was to let someone else know that they can make it, that they can get out of whatever situation they're experiencing. And that's what I would say to someone, is that they have a purpose.
Mm.
And no matter what people say, because there were people that told me that I wouldn't go to college, I wouldn't take advanced classes when I was in high school, and certainly not let's go to grad school
Mm.
at one of the top institutions in the world. But I'm just thankful that I just had to understand my purpose, and also have people around me that built me up. If it was my parents, or if it were other people in my family that I looked up to, or even my friends that kept me going. And I always say to keep people around you um, that are going to encourage you, even when you're going through hard times. That they're going to be those people that they're not going to be speaking negativity in your life, but they're going to speak positivity over you. And that's what I would say for anyone that's experiencing a difficult moment, or
Mhm.
difficult times, and to keep going. That's what I would lastly say to anyone, is just to keep going in your life,
Mm.
and to not let anything that's difficult get in the way of your future, because what you're going through now, it is building you up for those moments that you're going to say, remember when I was going through this difficult
Oh.
time. And it's going to inspire other people that are going through that
Mm.
same thing. And that's what I try to live by. And it's very difficult. It's something that I still struggle with today, but it's something that I have learned
Mhm.
throughout my life and that I'm still learning. And something that I would tell young people in particular is to learn from people and experiences.
Mm.
I think sometimes when you're young, you think you know it all. And I know I've had those times where my parents have told me something and I didn't necessarily follow what they would say. But then now I look back and I'm like,
Mhm.
they were right. So I think it's important to just learn from people, and I feel like you can learn from anyone. You can learn from your family,
Mhm.
you can learn from friends. You can learn from anyone that's in your life, or it doesn't even have to be someone in your life, but someone that you look up to. It could be a celebrity. It could be anyone, but
Mhm.
if they're giving you something that's positive, something that's going to help encourage you, I think that that's always important in learning from experiences, no matter if it's a positive experience or a negative experience, just learning from those and growing from those experiences. And something I would say to someone that's older is that you can always listen to the young. I think the
Mhm.
young people, they have a lot to offer, they have a lot to say, and young people have always led movements.
Mhm.
If you go back to the civil rights movement and the apartheid, the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, whatever movement we're talking about, young people have always been at the forefront, even
Mhm.
movements that we're having now in the United States and globally. So I feel like they have a lot to say there. And also my second point would be it's never too late to find your passion or
Mm.
to gain new passions.
You
Yeah.
know, man, that's speaking to me. I'm finding my passion what I'm doing right now. And I've already passed it for almost 32 years, and now it looks like I have the job, the job of my life. I enjoy doing it. I'm excited about doing it, and I hope and feel as if I'm helping folk along the way. So I know exactly where you are. So that spoke directly to me. Listeners, don't go any place because Emmanuel is going to come back and share some more good tips with us. But first, Emmanuel, let me ask you this: if somebody was interested in uh, talking with you, or I don't know, or if they want you for a speaking engagement. Your story is so interesting to even share your story, to be inspiring as an inspirational speaker, motivational speaker. Uh, how can they contact you? What is it that you have that will allow them to make contact with you?
So the best way of contacting me is probably through email, and
Okay.
my email is Emmanuel Tabb and then 95 at gmail.com. But I can also send that to you. So if you want to get that out to any of your listeners, I can definitely do that after the show.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
That'll be good because after listeners have heard you today and listen to these inspiring words from you, I'm certain somebody would probably, want to reach out to you. Some speaking engagement, somebody who will just want you to speak at some event that they have. It doesn't have to always be at a church. It can be at any place, and I want them to be able to contact you. So I appreciate
Thank
that
you, Matt. I appreciate it.
so yeah, so very much. Let me ask you a few more questions because your conversation with me today is just so inspiring and encouraging and transforming uh, a lot of it is even speaking to me. I've been you know touched, especially I see interviewing you at this young age and me at this much older age. interview you is amazing, even within itself. So I'm so very excited to have this opportunity. Uh, let me ask you a couple more questions about some of your experiences because I I know that you know and have worked with Dr. William Barber. Tell us a little about that experience and also your experience working with uh, the previous United States Senate candidate and North Carolina Supreme Court Justice Sherry Beasley. Uh, how did those experiences help you and what you gained from them?
Well, both of those experiences were really transformative in my life, and they happened at two different experiences in my life. The first experience with Dr. Reverend Barber happened when I was in high school. I was a senior. Well, I think I was going into my senior year at Hillside High School. I was in the IB program there, and Reverend Barber, he asked me to speak at one of the Moral Mondays. I think it was the largest Moral Monday rally at the time, and it was a very, very powerful experience. We were speaking in front of thousands of educators and young people. So I was charged with speaking directly on behalf of youth in North Carolina. And it was a very powerful moment because I felt like the people that were in the civil rights movement when they were speaking, like the late John Lewis and Dr. King and countless others that were speaking truth to power during moments of discomfort. And that experience to me was a very it was profound, but it was also a lot of parallels between past movements and movements that are being created now that are grassroots movements. So Reverend Barber is my father's line brother in the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, and they went to NCCU together. So I've known Reverend Barber my entire life, and I also consider him my godfather, and my family and I we're family friends of his family, and they've known us for a long time. We've known them as well for a long time. So that's how that experience came about.
Okay.
And then working for former U.S. Senate candidate Sherry Beasley, that experience came about, I think, when I was in, I think let me see, I was in high school. Yeah, I was in high school. I was a senior. Yeah, all those moments were right together. It's been so long ago now. That experience, my father and we were at an event, and I met Justice Beasley. I didn't know her before then. My father didn't know her. None of us knew her beforehand in terms of my family. And I asked her a simple question, and it was, how can I get an internship?
Mm.
And she told me, well, you can have an internship working for me.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was surprised. I when I asked the question, I was thinking that she was um, going to give me some advice about maybe politics or the legal system with the courts, because that was what I was interested in at that particular time, and I'm still interested in law
Mhm.
and politics and social justice. But at that particular time, I was trying to go to law school, or I was thinking about going to law school. So I was thinking that she was going to lead me in that direction. But I ended up working for her for the whole summer, and I was one of two high schoolers that worked for the North Carolina Supreme Court that summer. So it was a very interesting experience being with people that were much older than me. They were all in their second or third year of law school. So that was I wouldn't say it was intimidating, but it kind of did feel a little intimidating being so young. But
Mhm.
they all took me under their wing, and all of the justices at that time, no matter their political affiliation, they all made sure that we were looked after, and I truly appreciate that.
Wow, wow. Exciting. It's exciting. It's amazing how just one question can do something for you. I,
It is amazing. My dad always talks about connections,
yeah.
and that was one of those moments where I saw that for myself, all the things that my dad had been teaching me, and still that he still instills in me.
Mhm.
Those were that was a particular example
Yeah.
that I was able to experience that
Yeah.
first.
Don't mind asking the question you took
Hey,
because you never know where it's going to take you. That's a very good example. I noticed you're really interested and seem to be interested in social justice and theology. Have you kind of decided how you want to move in that direction and what you really want to do once you graduate? And you are graduated this year, as I understand, from Duke University Divinity School. Am I correct?
yes, sir, you're correct.
Okay. And have you decided in which direction you really want to go? I mean, you want to work with social justice. You want to kind of deal with that from a theological side, or you have other plans, and I know you don't know exactly at this point, but are there any thoughts on that?
That's something that I've been thinking about. I've always had this passion, as I alluded to earlier in the broadcast, on social justice and theology, and how they're paired together, and how we can use those two mediums to be able to change society, and how Christ always talked about helping the marginalized, and those that were blind, and those that couldn't hear. Um, and that's something that it resonated with me, because I thought about the challenges that I have, and I would always say that speaks to me. The social justice aspect of theology is something that has always resonated with me through not only the Gospels, but throughout the Bible. Even in the Old Testament, it talks about taking care of the widow,
Hmm, hmm,
and those that are oppressed. And even now, I constantly go back and forth with what am I going to do in terms of career choices.
mhm.
And I always go back to social justice, and I think that's something that I'm very passionate about. And how can I infuse theology in social justice?
Mm.
And that is something that I'm still wrestling with, and I think that I'll always probably wrestle with it, but I know that I have to make a decision. So I've always wanted to do that, and also I want to go into politics as well, or
Mm.
maybe even nonprofit work.
Okay.
So those are the three different arenas that I'm looking at, and I guess we'll see what happens in terms of finding a job.
Well, Emmanuel, you have been exciting today, and I think listeners will really appreciate your honesty and sharing with listeners of this podcast. And I'm just excited that we were able to have you come and be with us. And there you have it, Emmanuel Tabb. Uh, from an early age, he has always had an interest in speaking for the rights of marginalized communities. And he began advocating publicly at the age of 2. I want you to know that he has received multiple awards for his work. He has appeared, as I said earlier, in local television networks such as ABC 11, WRAL, and among others. He is just an exciting individual who has an excellent story, and one that I know will encourage, inspire, and transform. Emmanuel, it is great to have you share with us today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
God bless you.
I wish you do.